I know she's chatty. I hear my granddaughter talk out of a storm in the background here.
Blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay. You haven't taught her Latin or Greek yet, Andrew. I'm a little disappointed.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Moving on. Yes, the Wilson family loves the classics. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Behind the Numbers with the Wilsons. And wow, every show we've been coming to you and saying, we didn't think it could get much worse in the polling. And yet, it gets much worse in the polling.
It gets
Andrew,
much worse by the day.
Walk us through where we are. First off, with the big story everybody's talking about, the shutdown polling.
So we got a ton of new polling this week. All the big names you can think of: New York Times, Siena, Washington Post, NPR, PBS, Marist poll, The Economist. Huge week for polling. And the big story, I think, is that most people, actually, almost a majority of people say that Trump and Republicans are responsible for the shutdown. Now, that number would be in the 60s if we didn't factor in Republicans, because independents on this issue, they think I think they're in most polls they're 2 or 3 times more likely to say that Donald Trump and Republicans are responsible. 50,
yeah, look at that, 50 to 22.
That is an astonishing number.
Astonishing.
It is quite clear by the public polling that Americans blame Trump and Republicans. The onus is on them to end the shutdown. And I think, and we discussed this in the background, this is probably what pushed Schumer and Jeffries over the line. I don't think they would have done it if the polling had indicated that there was, any question. But this is out of the margin of error on all these polls. It's evident that people blame Trump and Republicans for the shutdown.
And I think this is why Trump's messaging has been what it's been. All the memes, all the self-referential bullshit. I think they know this is not a battle they're winning or can win. And so they're going to try to play to the base and keep the base revved up as long as they can and hope for the best. I don't see this as a winnable fight. Given the givens on these numbers, the fish rarely smells better on the third day.
Right? I don't think people are biting on the, this is about illegal immigrant health care. I don't think people are buying it, which is surprising in some ways to me, because I think a few months ago or maybe last year, people would have bought that line. And I was thinking about this morning, and this isn't about immigration, but Trump was able to stop the bipartisan immigration deal last year. Or was that in 2023? I can't remember. Either way, he stopped
early last year. But yeah.
And think about the amount of power he had over the government when he was outside of government. Now he's in full power. And I think that's all sort of evaporated. And in some ways, I know this is optimistic, but I think that parts of the Trump aura have vanished entirely. And I think part of the cult might be breaking off because of what's happening right now. And that comes down to the economy. People are, the economy's bad. We got those numbers this week, revised down, and then
right. And I think the other part of this of this, the place where the economy being bad and the shutdown coming together in a bad way for Republicans and for Trump. Trump is on the one hand saying we brought in $17 trillion of tariff money.
Right.
Okay. Which is just fantasy numbers, obviously. And on the other hand, he's saying we're so broke we have to shut down the government. How's that work? Which one of those is real?
We were promised that the tariffs would pay for the national debt, and now he's floating, sending it to farmers because his trade policy has put our American farmers in jeopardy. And I think it's reflected across the polls. People are feeling much more pessimistic about the economy.
Yeah,
they do blame Trump for a lot of this because it does come down to trade policy.
Which is why he's hurting. Which is why his overall economic performance numbers are just in the gutter.
Terrible. And this is the thing, right? Like, we have the shutdown, we have the economy. The Trump administration is not equipped to face crises.
No.
So, like you said, he's posting these memes instead of trying to actually deal with it. I think the evil counselors are mostly in charge right now, like Stephen Miller and Vaught. I don't think Trump really cares. He's worried about the renovations, and he wants the shutdown to be over because it's quite obvious they're losing. I think
Completely.
he may eventually try to snake out of it, and just
Yeah, he'll declare some emergency and say, "Oh, ICE doesn't have what it needs, and I've got to, whatever, and we're going to stop the, and by the way, just so everybody's clear on this, who's watching the show, their biggest talking point, and I've now confirmed this, that they're giving illegal aliens health care, came out of a focus group that Tony Fabrizio had conducted just recently and some polling he just conducted that that was desperately trying to find a message that would offset the damage that they also knew in that polling that Trump would accrue. There is much more nervousness inside this White House than is being reported.
well, you can see it
And
on Mike Johnson's face when he's
oh yeah.
confronted with anything about the shutdown. I mean, I think he's in panic mode.
So Andrew, let me ask you this question: of our 26 targets that are out there for next year, are any of them out there tweeting great support for Trump or pushing out the memes or doing all
I
the
highly
"Yay,
doubt
the
it.
shutdown is awesome"? I didn't think so.
That would be shocking to me, especially these Virginia races that we've been looking at, and that's even impacting the governor's race even sooner than next
Sure.
year. I think
And
that,
Winsome Sears could not land that hit, saying, "Oh
no, I think
well, it's
so. There's some Emerson
all
College
right." Let's
polling
see.
out this week as well. So yeah, looking at this, I made this point to Sam before we got on. This shutdown is different from past shutdowns. Looking at past shutdowns, you generally see people spread the blame a little more.
Sure.
And now Trump had three shutdowns in his first term, so he does kind of defy the rule. But most shutdowns are more balanced than this.
Yep.
Not the case here.
So that's a really interesting point, Andrew, because I think it stems from the perception and the reality that Donald Trump runs Washington, D.C. with an iron fist. He totally controls the House. He totally controls the Senate. He totally controls the Supreme Court. And he has a White House that is running roughshod over any rule, restriction, law, precedent, tradition, norm, institutional friction that he finds. And I think Americans know this. They're not stupid about this, right? I mean,
no, they're not. And I think you can tell with the message about illegal immigrant health care that they were groping around in the dark for something.
Yeah.
And it's, this is the problem that Democrats have a lot of the time, where they have to keep explaining themselves. This doesn't add up when you if you dig at the surface of the story that they're telling about illegal immigrant health care, it just doesn't make sense. And I think people, they can't explain it well enough, and they just didn't land on the right message. So this is some issue polling. I think the things to note about the issue polling right now, Trump is still up with Republicans on every issue except for Epstein. I think that speaks to the potency of that issue once again.
Which is the other reason we're doing the shutdown.
Right, it's to avoid Epstein stuff, and we're not seating Adelita Grijalva because she promised to break.
Right, she's the 218th vote.
Right. So
Yeah.
That's another reason why Republicans have fled Washington, D.C., and they're hiding.
Right.
So I want to look at the independent approval on inflation. It's at 14. For independent voters, you can see consistently, I mean, this is true for all voters, but especially independent voters, that the economy is their number one issue.
Absolutely.
Their approval on inflation and the cost of living is 14. Their approval on the economy overall is only 24. It's hard to put it in any other way. Those are like the worst polling numbers I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean that is, especially on an issue that was definitional in 2024.
Yep.
For Donald Trump's success at the ballot box. It was a core swinging leverage point or hinge point.
Yep.
Of convincing independent and a lot of Trump skeptical voters. Well, at least he'll fix the inflation.
Yeah. I mean, I think even with Republicans at 57% approval on inflation and cost of living, I think that should cause panic in the White House. That is a low
Yeah.
number with Republicans compared to other issues.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that is, I mean, I would compare this number to something like sending the National Guard to DC. We still haven't really undermined the idea that crime is this big problem. And, Republicans still approve of these deployments 80%. But being down at 57 with inflation and cost of living, I think that compares very unfavorably for him.
That's the door that's open, I think, for us, the Lincoln Project, and for Democrats running for the House and Senate this year, and for Democrats running for governor this year, is, and I said this yesterday on Morning Joe, it doesn't have to be a complicated message. This is crazy. It's hurting your family.
Yep.
It's hurting your family. And sorry, I'm traveling today, and you can hear some sort of reggaeton playing outside, which is not a clue to where I am. Because really, if you knew where I was, it would be so much more boring. But yeah, I mean, this is a weak spot, a soft underbelly in the Trump idea, and I do think the crisis point that is approaching for Trump, the pressure point that's approaching, is we are now at the end of all the contract periods for most agriculture products for the year. They are sitting in silos, costing farmers money or rotting. They are about to have a catastrophic collapse in the agriculture markets across the country.
Scary stuff.
Scary, bad stuff. And for folks who don't get this, there will also be an almost instantaneous ripple effect out on property markets. There'll be a ripple effect out on heavy industrial products. There'll be a ripple effect out on car and truck sales. And all of it will bind together into one big thing. And there is no one, and this polling is sort of consonant with that, there is no one who thinks, oh, the Democrats caused the tariffs.
Nope.
Trump owned them, branded them as his own. I love the tariffs. I love
congressional Republicans gave him,
that's right,
a blank check to do whatever he wanted with tariffs.
That is correct.
This issue can only hurt Republicans and Trump.
Yeah. Well, and I mean sorry, folks, I'm on my phone today, so
this text is quite small, but it's a job approval out of Pennsylvania. So we got not just national polling this week, but a lot of state polling.
I love state polling.
So there's some interesting things here. I thought it was a typo at first, but it says his approval with Black adults in Pennsylvania is at 4%.
So 4%. That is inside the margin of error. Also, which could be zero.
It could be zero.
So, Andrew, let me ask you this question. One of the things that Trump bragged about a lot, boasted about a lot, and that Republicans took for granted was that there's been a permanent realignment among African Americans and among Hispanics, where a third of their population or more are now Trump/MAGA voters. This seems to be an early indicator that alignment may not be so steady.
This is coalition collapse at its absolute worst.
Right.
I can't imagine that this is much worse than Republicans should typically perform with Black voters.
Right. Normally, 8 to 11 is like a bottom.
Right. But he's at 4 in a critical state. He's also, in this poll, you can see his approval with independents is at 29.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to put into words. I mean, this is a terrible, failed presidency, and people are waking up to it. It seems relatively obvious to most people, apparently, except for Republicans, who are still rock solid, 90% approval. This is in Pennsylvania.
We've always said it's a game of small numbers.
Yep.
And I think as the economic pain drives forward further, you're going to see it break in these swing states, which you now put the slide up. So talk to us about where he's at in these vital states that he did well in the year of our Lord 2024. And if it was held today, not so much.
Underwater in all states, underwater in states where we have congressional races that we are targeting next year, like Pennsylvania. So he won these states by small margins generally, but now he's down by very significant numbers. So he's down 13 in Pennsylvania, 11 in Georgia, 12 in Nevada, 9 in North Carolina, which I think is relatively significant to talk about the Senate
With
race
Cooper.
next year too.
Right.
Now, I think we'll see more decline. I think the floor has gone away. He's dropping like a rock in Wisconsin and Michigan, down 10 in Wisconsin and 12 in Michigan. He won both those states by near a point.
Couple points. Yeah.
Yeah. This, I think, is an indication of what we'll see next year. You know, things aren't. I don't foresee him fixing the economy. I don't foresee him backing down from trade policy, since the Supreme Court and Congress said that he had, he could do whatever he wanted. He's too stubborn, I think, and demented to change course. And if he did change course, the wheels would come off, I think.
I think that would crack the base further.
Yes, absolutely. They don't want to see him surrender. Now, I think there's one thing he could do is, weasel his way out of the shutdown, make a deal, and call it a win. Which probably would be his best move. But he's lost a lot of his juice recently. I think
I think so too. I think absolutely. He's had a lot of failings. So
yeah.
Well, Andrew, we're gonna cut it short today, but I appreciate it. This is good intel, folks. We'll be back with a longer show next week, and wish you all the best. And we will talk to you again next time on Behind the Numbers.